I then got the idea that if my grandma had hired someone to kill my mom, her own daughter, and had tried to kill me by giving me bad medication once, that there was a good chance that she would try again. And so I went over to my grandma's house with a plan. "Hello there. Can I come in? I have something important I need to talk to you about."
Oh, it's you. Fine, but make it quick.
"Well, I've thought long and hard about it, and the company just isn't for me. Would you like to buy my share of the company that I inherited from your daughter? You can pay me whatever it is that you think is fair." Hi there. My name is Susan, and I have a bit of a dark story to share. Let me start off by saying that I'm not exactly proud of what I did, but honestly, I would not hesitate to do it again. What did I do? Well, let me give you the run-up to what happened, and it will help you to understand why I did what I did. You may still think I wasn't justified doing what I did, but that's for you to decide. Growing up, my family was very poor. I was an only child, and my father left my mother and I when I was very young, and while my mother did her best, she barely was able to keep us both fed and clothed. I knew for a fact that some nights that my mom wouldn't eat at all, because she didn't have enough money but still wanted to make sure that I ate something. Then tragedy struck, and my mother died from an industrial accident at work. Since my father was nowhere to be found, I was put in an orphanage. Thankfully, I didn't have to stay there very long. My adoptive mother, Nancy, was volunteering in the area to help feed the homeless and was visiting the orphanage to help out when she saw me. She instantly knew that she wanted to be my mother, and so she filled out the paperwork. And a couple weeks later, I was on an airplane with her going to a faraway land to live with her in America. It was awkward as I had a hard time learning the language, but Nancy was very patient with me. She gave me all the clothes, food, and toys I could ever ask for. And it didn't take me very long to start to warm up to her. After my mother had passed, I had never thought I would be a member of a family again, but I truly did love Nancy. My new grandparents, though, hated me.
Hey, Mom and Dad, I want for you to meet Susan. This is Susan? Oh, Nancy, why couldn't you have adopted a white child at least? It's bad enough that you refuse to give us a flesh and blood grandchild, but to adopt this black child instead, it's revolting.
We can't believe that you would be such an idiot to adopt her. Well, just so long as you know that she will never inherit my company. There is no way some black girl will get any of my money.
Nancy just bit her tongue when they would say such things, as she didn't want to cause any conflict. But later she would always tell me that she would always ensure that I was taken care of, and that no matter what, that I would one day inherit the company. When I was very young, I didn't really think much about it. But as I grew up, I began to look forward to one day running the company. My grandfather owned a toy company and made millions from the sale of the toys that he manufactured. I didn't care so much about the money, but the idea of making toys for a living sounded like a lot of fun and filled me with happiness. I just really enjoyed the idea that things that I made would bring joy and comfort to children all over the world. It felt like a dream job. Years passed and I slowly grew up, and when I was around 15, two tragic things transpired. The first was that I was diagnosed with diabetes. Honestly, it wasn't so bad. I just had to take medication both in pill form and the occasional injection, and I was able to manage it. The other tragedy was much more impactful. My grandfather had a serious stroke and passed away after being rushed to the hospital. At the funeral, my grandmother avoided my mother and I as much as possible. I later found out that the reason why was due to the fact that she had inherited half of my grandfather's company and that my mother had inherited the other half. I think that it terrified her, that there was a chance that I would one day own what she and her husband had created.
Nancy, now that your father is gone, I want to take the company in a different direction. However, I can't do so with only owning half the company. As your mother, I demand that you sell me your share of the company. Why would I do that? Because I deserve to own the company, not you, and certainly not that ugly daughter of yours. That foreign devil probably caused your father's stroke somehow with black magic or something. Can you hear yourself? Why would you say something so incredibly crazy? Oh, just stuff it. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing you call me a racist. Now just sell me the company or I'll make you regret it.
Of course, my mother refused to sell to her. After all, Nancy wanted for me to inherit the company as she knew how much it meant to me. But my grandma was an evil woman, and even though Nancy was her daughter, she still was trying to force her to give up her half of the company. She would even hire people to come to our house and harass my mom. telling her that if she didn't sell the company, that they would be forced to hurt her or burn down our house. My mother always told them to leave and even threatened a few of them with a baseball bat and told them that if she had to, that she would break their skulls with it. The men that my grandma sent were never small men, and seeing my mother stand up to them was inspirational. It gave me courage every time I would see it happen. Years passed, and when I turned 21, my mother began training me at the company. This, of course, upset my grandma incredibly, and she made it known that it irritated her. She never outright said anything, but we would see her around the company, and she would give my mother and I dirty, angry looks that spoke volumes. Then one day, I was making dinner and waiting for my mom to get home from work when I got a call that there had been an accident. While walking home from work, a mugger had attacked and shot my mom, and she was being rushed to the hospital. I drove there immediately and nearly broke down when the doctor told me that the injuries were too severe and that she wasn't going to make it. By morning the next day, she had passed away, and I was an orphan. I was inconsolable and distraught. Oddly enough, my grandma came over to my house and tried to comfort me.
Oh, Susan, these things happen. It's best not to dwell on it too much.
Dwell? My mother's body isn't even cold, and you expect me to move on with my life?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be heartless. Would you please excuse me? I need to use the restroom.
I was so incredibly annoyed with her, so when she came back into the room and said that she needed to leave, I was quite happy. I didn't want her in my house to begin with and was happy to see her go. Hours after she left, though, I went to take my medication and noticed that my pills looked odd. For starters, there were more in the bottle than there had been earlier in the day, and the shape of them seemed slightly off. I don't know if it was paranoia or if my intuition was telling me to be wary, but I grabbed the bottle and took it down to the pharmacy I usually got them from. The doctor there took one look at the pills I had and said that they were sugar pills and not diabetes medication. I instantly knew what had happened. My grandma had only come over to make it look like she was worried about me and had instead used it as a ruse to swap my medication out. I asked the doctor at the pharmacy what would have happened if I had taken the sugar pills, and he told me that they would have killed me. Terrified, I got a new prescription and took the sugar pills home with me. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them, but I knew that I could use them for something. The next day at work, I stared daggers at my grandma, but said nothing to her. Then during lunch, her assistant cornered me in the lunchroom and asked to speak privately with me. I agreed, since she had always been nice to me and she looked like she really had something important to tell me. Hello, Betty. What is it? What did you need to tell me in private?
Well, it's like this. I think your grandma had something to do with your mom's death.
What do you mean?
I don't have any physical proof, but I overheard her tell someone that she expected him to get the job done and that she had paid him extra to use a gun to make it as painless as possible. The next day, I heard how your mom was shot during a mugging, and, well, it felt like too much of a coincidence. Something tells me that she might try to hurt you next.
I thanked Betty and promised that I would be careful. I knew that she had been telling me the truth, as Betty had always been an honest person. Later, I checked the company's financial records and saw that some money had been transferred from the company bank account to someone outside the company. The transaction just had them listed as an outside contractor. This sort of thing never happened, and I could only assume that it proved what Betty had said had been true. I then got the idea that if my grandma had hired someone to kill my mom, her own daughter, and had tried to kill me by giving me bad medication once, that there was a good chance that she would try again. And so I went over to my grandma's house with a plan. Hello there. Can I come in? I have something important I need to talk to you about.
Oh, it's you. Fine, but make it quick.
Well, I've thought long and hard about it, and the company just isn't for me. Would you like to buy my share of the company that I inherited from your daughter? You can pay me whatever it is that you think is fair. I could tell that she was surprised by this, but was happy that I was essentially giving her exactly what she wanted.
I mean, of course. I'll give you a fair value for your share, of course. Thank you for understanding that it's best to keep the company in the family.
Yes, I understand. Actually, would you excuse me for a second? I need to use the restroom. She told me that I could, and just as had done, I went and changed her medications out for the sugar pills she had tried to give me. Afterwards, I went and joined her in her living room again, and we talked about how she would write up the documents necessary for me to sell her my half of the company. And then we agreed to close on the deal in a few days at the office. The next day, she didn't come into work, and later in the day, I found out that she had had a heart attack and was in the hospital struggling for her life. One of the medications I replaced was nitroglycerin pills that she needed for her angina. I went to the hospital and saw her in a bed. She looked ragged, and I could tell that she was struggling to stay conscious. She looked at me with pleading eyes, but she didn't have the strength to speak. "Hello, Grandma. Oh my, you do look terrible. But don't worry, it will all be over soon. By the way, I know that you had my mother killed, and also that you tried to kill me. Don't worry though. Once you pass on, I will take very good care of the company. By the way, how did those sugar pills taste?" Her eyes filled up with fear as I spoke, and she suddenly had a massive heart attack and passed away. So, my friend, I know what you must be thinking. I should have gone to the police and let them handle things, but I just couldn't. She had my mother murdered, her own daughter, for crying out loud. I'm not a complete monster, though. I do feel guilty for what I did, and even though it doesn't make up for it. In my grandma's name, I make donations every year. I've arranged for toys to be made and sent to children all over the world. I've also changed the hiring practices at the company, and we now have a much more diverse staff as well. So there you have it. I know what I did was wrong, but I would do it all again if given the chance. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.